Good evening, friends. Let us be still for a moment, turn within to the presence, and in the silence, allow truth to announce itself. Warning, spoken in love. What we're about to touch is not for the curious mind, but for the soul ready to surrender every second-hand belief. Joel's final emphasis is simple, yet it will undo your world of appearances. God is the only cause. Grace is the law. There is no power in effect. When this is realized, not just believed, fear loses its voice and life begins to unfold not by effort, but by the invisible rhythm of the One. Tonight, we will not argue, we will witness. We will rest, and in that resting, a door will open. If you feel that inner yes, even if it trembles, stay close. Like this message, subscribe to keep this atmosphere alive, and type 777 in the comments as your seal of willingness to live by one power. Shall we step together to the threshold where this last teaching waits, knowing that once you hear it, you can never unhear it. First, let us look squarely at the foundational claim: there is in truth only one power, one cause. Everything in your training has prepared you to believe in a universe of rival forces, sickness against health, lack against supply, fear against love, yet all of that belongs to the realm of appearance, 'cause is invisible. 'Cause is spirit. What appears as form is only the echo of awareness, never a power in itself. When the mind grants power to effects, it must live in defense and reaction. When it yields to the One, it rests, and the rhythm of being carries it. To realize one power is not to chant a slogan, it is to withdraw belief from every secondary cause. Notice the subtle ways we admit second powers: a number in a bank account, a prognosis on a page, an opinion in a room, the memory of yesterday, or the fear of tomorrow. Each asks for a little faith. Each says, "Consider me." The practice is holy refusal. We do not fight effects, nor do we decorate them with positive thought. We stand still and acknowledge God alone is cause, therefore no effect can intimidate, seduce, or govern us. This recognition begins in silence. Not the silence of strained effort, but the living hush in which the presence announces itself. Enter that hush for a breath and notice you are not manufacturing God. You are surrendering the belief that anything else is God. Inevitably, the mind will protest. It will point to symptoms, bills, headlines, storms. Smile gently at the parade. Ask, what power is there in an image on the screen of awareness? Effects are photographs, 'cause is the light. No photograph can change the sun. As this realization deepens, conduct becomes simple. We cease bargaining with life. We do what is ours to do, yet our doing is no longer a bid for control. The farmer sows, the law of life brings harvest. The healer listens, grace does the healing. The artist shows up, inspiration pours. One power frees us from the exhaustion of managing outcomes, because outcomes are recognized as shadows of a single, indivisible source. Do not confuse this with passivity. The absence of fear is not apathy, it is authority. When the wave knows it is the ocean, it does not withdraw from the shore. It arrives with purity and without resistance. So with us, decisions arise, words are spoken, steps are taken, but the inner posture is non-resistance to God and non-recognition of any rival. Try this in small ways. Bless the news without letting it name your world. Pay the bill with gratitude, not anxiety. Meet the symptom with quiet, not combat. Each is an altar where faith is transferred from effect to cause, from appearances to the One who is. Then, even in seeming crisis, we refrain from invoking two powers. We do not try to make spirit fix matter. We witness that spirit is all, awareness of the One interpreting itself as right action, right unfoldment. Observe how fear loosens when you refuse it authority. Observe how intuition speaks when you stop consulting appearances. This is not magic, it is fidelity. Stay faithful in daily practice for another breath, until the habit of deifying effects breaks and the heart trusts. Cause alone, from cause alone flows the next clarity. There is no power in effect. What appearances are nothingness. Nothingness does not mean non-existence in the sense of denial of what seems to be before the eyes. It means non-substance, non-selfhood, no authority to act upon you. A reflection in a mirror looks like a face, yet it cannot smile or frown of itself. It borrows its seeming from a living source. So with conditions, they borrow light from awareness. When we yield authority to appearances, pleasant or unpleasant, we must bow to them. When we see through them, we cease reacting and find ourselves resting in the one that never fluctuates. What does this look like when the day confronts you? A symptom signals in the body. A number blinks on a screen, a comment lands in the room. Each event claims cause law and power. Listen within before you move without. Ask, by what authority does an effect decree my state? A bell cannot ring itself. Sound is the effect of a struck cause. To wrestle with sound is futile. Likewise, to fight effects is to enthrone them. We do not coat appearances with positive gloss. We strip them of borrowed authority by knowing their status as shadow. In that knowing, fear has no purchase, and right action, if any, arises. Cleanly understand that nothingness is not cynicism. It is the holy realism that uses forms without being used by them. A thermometer registers temperature, it does not create heat. A map points, it cannot take you there. A photograph displays, it cannot breathe. The movie screen remains immaculate while war and wedding pass across it. Your awareness, resting in the one, is that screen. Storms may flash on it, but the screen is not wet. Even so, called good appearances are effects and must not be worshipped. Health, money, what opportunity, fine as instruments, empty as gods. To cling to favorable effect is to set yourself up for dread of its change. Freedom is reliance on spirit alone. Joel called the whole parade of material sense mesmeric suggestion, impersonal, universal. Personalizing it lends it teeth. Impersonalize error, and it dissolves as mist in sunlight. When a suggestion arrives, urgency, dread, pride, regret, pause and let silence meet it. In that silence, you feel there is no someone on the other side to oppose, only a voice without substance. Resist not evil does not mean submit to wrong. It means refuse to arm a shadow. Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Righteous judgment is the inner recognition that causes God, and nothing in the field of effect has law to bind the child of the One. I can of mine own self do nothing, the Father within doth the works. So the strain of self-defended living loosens in business. You will find yourself firm without hardness. In family, gentle without appeasing. In the body, attentive without obsession. You hear the news and bless, not because you agree or disagree, but because blessing refuses to concede a second power. Often you will notice that outer adjustments occur. A way opens, a conversation softens, a solution appears, but you will know it did not come from manipulating effects, it came from the withdrawal of belief in them. The carnal mind lost its audience. Our practice is steady, quick recognition, swift impersonalization, quiet turning within, and simple obedience to the inward nudge that follows. When appearances shout, answer with the calm fact effect has no law, no mind, no source of its own. The invisible is the only government, and you live by that government here, and now that government is grace, self-operating, impartial, unopposed, and because it is the government of God, it functions as the very law of life and supply. Grace is not a mood God gets into, nor a reward for good conduct. It is principle, like sunlight giving itself without calculation, like a spring that pours because it is its nature to pour. When we cease crediting effects with power, we feel the quiet pressure of grace moving through what we call circumstances, producing sufficiency without strain and order without manipulation. Supply under grace is not a transfer from person to person. It is the outflow of the infinite through whatever channel is handy. Persons, places, and things are instruments, never sources. The moment we mistake an instrument for a source, fear enters. Fear of loss, fear of change, fear of not enough. Shift the gaze to source and the instrument can change as often as it must, yet the river does not fail. Money, opportunity, clients, ideas, these are symbols. Symbols come and go. The reality that they point to is steady and immediate, forever here, because grace is law. It relieves us of anxious contriving. Take no thought is not irresponsibility, it is spiritual intelligence. Thought that tries to guarantee outcome is fear in costume. Thought that yields to the presence is listening. In listening, guidance is specific and surprisingly simple. Write this note, make that call, rest now, go there, say nothing. The doing that follows is clean, free of the psychic tug to force. You will notice an economy of action, fewer steps, clearer timing, kinder results. Not because you engineered them, but because grace does not waste motion. Bring this into the practical. When the budget frowns, acknowledge the fact. Grace is the only law operating in this household, this business, this body of work. Refuse the hypnotism of numbers as causation, not by ignoring them, but by seeing them as dials on a dashboard, not the engine. Then do the next right thing with a free heart. When a bodily need presents, honor the care that is appropriate while knowing life is not maintained by vitamins, regimens, or willpower. It is maintained by the life that is God. And care is simply one of grace's courtesies along the way. Gratitude under grace's recognition, not persuasion. We do not give thanks to coax more. We give thanks because the river is already running. Generosity under grace is expression, not strategy. We do not sow in order to get. We sow because the nature of the one is outpouring, and we are that nature individualized. In this atmosphere, comparison loosens, envy withers, and the nervous compulsion to hoard dissolves. Sufficiency replaces excess as the felt tone of being, and with sufficiency comes a purity of joy that accumulation could never deliver. There will be tests, moments when visibility shrinks and the senses report emptiness. Let these be classrooms rather than crises. Stand in the invisible fact. Grace is operative, even where my eyes see lack. Refuse to appoint a second law called shortage. Let stillness clarify your next movement and move without the H of self-rescue. Often you will witness timely provision, a door no one could have planned, a right idea arriving fresh. You will recognize it not as a trophy for faith, but as the natural footprint of a law that never stopped being itself. We learn to live by consent rather than conquest. Consent is not passivity, it is alignment. It is the inward yes that lets grace use you as an unobstructed channel, your speech as benediction, your craft as blessing, your presence as rest to others. And as consent deepens, reliance on external assurances becomes unnecessary, because you are becoming acquainted with the feel of reality at the center, here, where grace is the government and supply is the effortless self-bestowal of the one. From that realization follows a way of meeting everything that appears. Impersonalize error, never resist or fight it. To resist is to confer reality, to set up a second pole and thereby energize the very thing you hope to end. Error, whether it shows as illness, conflict, lack, criticism, temptation, or fear, is not personal. It is mesmeric suggestion, a universal hypnotism of the senses claiming presence, power, law, and mind of its own. When you make it about a person, me, you, them, you bind it to a face and give it teeth. When you remove the mask and see it as claim without substance, the spell breaks and grace operates without obstruction. Begin with the gentle refusal to take offense. A harsh word arrives, notice the first surge to defend, justify, accuse. That surge is the hypnotism looking for a host. Step back inside and let the silence answer for you. Father, reveal yourself here. In that inward pause, heat cools and the scene clarifies. There is no opponent, only a suggestion of separation seeking validation. Love, recognized as the only reality, does not need to triumph over hate. It renders hate unintelligible. Forgive them, they know not what they do, is not moral superiority, it is spiritual accuracy. Personal sense is blindness, and blindness is not a selfhood to condemn. Apply the same principle in the body. A symptom announces itself, and the mind wants a duel. Instead of fighting a condition, meet the claim behind it, the suggestion that life is material and power is in effect. Acknowledge the presence as the life of your life, the law of your functions, the very substance of form. Take whatever practical care is right, but do it without enlisting in a war. Light does not wrestle shadows, it shines, and shadows have no argument left. The less you personalize the condition, my ailment, my weakness, the more easily the light of awareness corrects the picture. In finances, do not wrestle with numbers, address the suggestion that supply has a human source and therefore can be threatened. Impersonalize the fear at its root. When dread whispers, "What if it runs out?" recognize it as the age-old phantom speaking with a fresh accent. Answer by reposing in the fact of one infinite outflow, then take the next simple step you are given. Non-resistance is not inaction. It is action free of hatred and fear, guided by the still small voice rather than by panic in relationships. Refuse to enthrone a villain. See through roles to the Christ in each one, even when behavior requires a clear boundary. You may speak firmly, change a policy, leave a room, or decline an invitation, but inwardly you do not forge an enemy. The moment you create an enemy, you recruit yourself into the army of two powers. Impersonalizing error returns authority to the one by declining to certify a second actor on the stage how to practice. Catch the pronouns. Instead of "my anxiety," notice "suggestion of anxiety." Instead of "their cruelty," notice "claim of cruelty." This is not wordplay. It is the surgical removal of false identity. Then be still. Let the presence declare itself. At times a word of truth surfaces, only one power, I in the midst. And at times there is only quiet. Quiet is enough. From quiet, right words and deeds appear without emotional static. You will discover that many storms resolve without a speech, without an argument, without a heroic gesture. They evaporate when they are refused personal backing. Self-condemnation must be treated the same way. Shame and regret try to pose as me, seeking penance through self-attack. See them as suggestion, not identity. Make amends where love directs, but do not fight yourself. Fighting self is still fighting, and fighting enthrones unreality. Yield instead to the always present innocence of the one living as you, and let that innocence reform conduct from within without the lash of guilt, and from this innocence arises the capacity to take no thought, to enter silence for realization. Take no thought does not mean neglect of duty or a vacant mind. It means releasing the compulsive habit of planning, worrying, arguing, and pleading, so that the inner ear may hear the word. Thinking about truth is not realization. Realization is the felt advent of the presence that needs no defense and offers no explanations. The mind is a fine servant for measuring wood, writing emails, catching trains. It is a poor priest in the temple. In the temple, we are still. This stillness is welcoming rather than willful. You do not force quiet. You consent to it. Sit, stand, or walk with an inward attention that is soft, alert, and ungrasping. Let a simple pointer, "Father, here I..." Peace, rest on the tongue of the heart, then let even that dissolve. The point of a sacred word is to open the door once the room is entered. Silence is truer than syllables. If thoughts race, do not fight them. Notice the one who notices thoughts. Awareness is already free of the content it beholds, as the sky is unmarked by birds that cross it. We are not engineering an experience. We are yielding to the always present reality until it declares itself in practice. Keep your meditations brief and frequent. Before the day begins, touch the silence. Before a call, a meeting, a meal, a decision, touch the silence. Pause at red lights, in doorways, between paragraphs. Let the holiness of the pause become the rhythm of your hours. 5 seconds of pure receptivity often does more than 50 minutes of strained effort. When fear surges, do not negotiate with the storyline. Turn within and be still. "Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth," is not a plea for a voice from the ceiling. It is a posture of listening to the center that is never absent. "Take no thought for tomorrow" is not a rule against calendars. It is freedom from living in imagined futures. Plan what love gives you to plan, and then release it back to grace. Refuse the itch to rehearse outcomes or pre-live conversations. The presence goes before you to prepare the way, not because you have persuaded it, but because it is the way itself. You will notice that many tasks become simpler when you are no longer trying to smuggle anxiety into them for luck. When you sit, let the breath be natural. Feel the body breathe itself, and notice that life is happening without your permission. This recognition loosens the grip of personal doership. If a word of truth rises, I in the midst of me is mighty. Be still and know. Let it sound, then let it subside into quiet. The silence is the teacher, not the syllables. If a gentle warmth, a subtle peace, or a clear intuition appears, receive it without clinging. If nothing appears, that too is holy. Emptiness is only the mind's word for a presence that will not be objectified. Carry the practice into activity. Listen while you speak. Rest inwardly while you write. Walk as if each step were taken in a sanctuary. When disturbance comes, identify the temptation to think your way out and choose instead to center first. From the center, action is cleaner, a simple yes or no, a timely call, a change of tone, a willingness to wait. Guidance does not shout, it leans. It is specific, never anxious, and it leaves no residue of self-congratulation because its origin is not the personal mind over time. Take no thought, ripens into trust. You begin to notice that the presence answers before you ask, and often without words, through openings, closures, rearrangements, inner certainties. You stop measuring your practice by fireworks and start recognizing the quiet fruit: less hurry, fewer arguments, clearer love, an ease in not knowing. And as this ease deepens, the sense of being a separate thinker gradually gives way to being the place where the one mind is openly living its own life through you, without strain, without self-promotion, without the old reflex to manage the universe. As the sense of being a separate thinker fades, surrender of personal selfhood ceases to be a project and becomes recognition. You are not trying to give something up. You are noticing there is nothing to give up but a claim, a costume, a habit of me. This surrender is not self-negation, not moral scolding, not the trimming of ego into virtue. It is transparency. The window does not try to be bright, it gets out of the way of the light. So with us, the personal sense steps aside and the inner Christ, the eye of God, the presence that says, I am, lives its own life without obstruction. To live as the Christ within is not to imitate a historical figure. It is to awaken to the same I that spoke through prophets and poets, through healers and neighbors, through quiet mothers and steadfast artisans. I can of mine own self do nothing, is the doorway, the Father within doth the works, is the living room. As this awareness stabilizes, action simplifies. You find yourself speaking the word that blesses rather than the speech that convinces. You discover boundaries that are firm yet unheated, compassion that is warm yet unsticky, courage that is clean because it is borrowed from no personal store. Signs of this shift are unmistakable. Praise neither inflates nor intoxicates, blame neither crushes nor provokes defense. Opportunities are not chased with hunger nor refused out of fear. You experience a new modesty that is not smallness but right proportion. God large, self-transparent. Prayer changes tone, fewer petitions. More recognition, fewer explanations, more quiet beholding. The energy once spent maintaining an image returns to you as availability to love, to listen, to be used. Surrender does not erase your uniqueness, it frees it from strain. The brush does not compete with the paint, together they serve the artist. Your temperament, word choice, craft, and history become instruments through which the one plays. You stop asking, how am I doing? And begin noticing, what is moving me now? The result is not sluggishness but effortless precision. Encounters have a rightness of timing. No one knows why the call came just then, or why the phrase arrived whole, or why the journey turned left instead of right, but the imprint of the inner government is evident in the fruit. Peace, clarity, Sufficiency old appetites lose their glamour because their bait is personal glory or personal anesthesia, and both feel foreign. The need to be right, to be seen, to be first, to be indispensable loosens. What remains is simple willingness. You take the lower seat when asked and the upper seat when asked, because neither seat is your identity. You can apologize without drama and correct without superiority, because identity is no longer at stake. The soul becomes light on its feet, even suffering alters in flavor. When pain appears, of body, of loss, of misunderstanding, the reflex to make a personal story softens. The question turns from, why me, to, what in me is yet clinging to a second power? In that inquiry, tenderness arises for all beings who labor under the same mesmerism. Compassion matures from rescue to recognition, seeing the Christ where others see only trouble, holding to one power while offering whatever practical kindness is needed. Refusing to enroll in fear's urgency even as you move swiftly where love directs, practice this surrender in small, ordinary ways. Before you answer an email, notice, I of myself have no agenda, let the inner I answer. Before you enter a room, pause, not my presence, but thy presence. When a decision appears complex, lay down the gavel of the private judge and wait until the quiet nudge is unmistakable. Let your name become a doorway rather than a destination. Someone calls it, and what steps through is not the anxious manager, but the restful crest awareness that knows what to say, what to refrain from, where to go, and how to be still